This is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. I have another exciting episode for you today. We're outside Freedman's Home Improvement. This is a local home improvement store, like a hardware store, but they also carry some farm supplies out in their yard. So what I'm going to do today is go into their yard and share with you specifically some of the things they're selling at the farm supply area that can help you grow more food at home. One of the things I'm going to be sure to cover is trellising. Now, I use many kinds of trellising, from bamboo trellises, string trellises, nylon string trellises, welded wire trellises, and even utility panels, and probably a few other things I'm not thinking of, tree branches. There's many things you can use, and what I'm going to show you guys today is the galvanized stock panels, or hog panels, or also called utility panels, that are probably, in my opinion, right at the top of the list because they are very long-lasting, durable, and will provide you with many years of service and also work well. So in any case, let's go ahead and head into the yard and show you some of these cool things that can help you grow more food at home. So now we're going to go into the express yard, and they have some different things out in the express yard than they normally have in their regular hardware store, and let's see if they have those utility panels. So here are the hog panels, also called stock panels or utility panels. Now, I'm lucky the hardware store here carries them. Most hardware stores may not. You may have to go to like a farm and ranch supply store, maybe tractor supply store. And they have like 4 different kinds here. So we're gonna quickly go over each one. This one's called a hog panel, and this one's $26.99 and 16 feet by 34 inches. And you can see, lift this up, this thing is quite long. And the thing about this panel is that as you get closer to the bottom, you can see the spacing is a lot closer. So, you know, this may be good for hogs or little small animals that can't get through the smaller spacing, and as it gets, you know, higher up on the panel, the spacing gets bigger. You know, while this will work for plants because they don't care, I'd much rather have a uniform look. So I'd rather use over here is what I used on my trellis, is a 4x4 high 5 panel. This is 16 feet by 5 feet, so actually this is quite long. I have to strap this onto the Jeep to get it home. And I can pick this guy up, and this one's actually nice and uniform, 4-inch squares on the size of the holes. And this is one large sheet, so, you know, while this is $50, you could cut this down into several smaller pieces to make a nice trellis that's literally going to last a long time in your garden without any additional support. You know, you may need some end rails depending on how tall you want to get. This one's about 50 bucks. Let's check out over on the other side and see the other 2 panels that they have available here. Here are the last 2 panels. They have what's called a combo panel, 13 line. Now when they refer to the lines, what that means is how many basically wires or bars are going down. So we could count these: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So you can see here, once again, this panel has the small ones on the bottom, and then as you go up, they progressively get wider going out. This panel is 16 feet by about 50 inches, and that one's $37.99. You know, I don't see too much of the functionality for growing plants with that one, but what I'd actually prefer, if you're on a really tight budget, instead of the nice 4x4 stock panel, I'd probably go with this one. This is a 10-line 50-inch wide by 16 feet long, and this one's $23.99, so this is definitely the best deal. And you know, most of these spacing on the holes here are pretty uniform, which is definitely really good, except maybe down to the last 2, it gets a little bit smaller. That being said, the spacing on these panels, you know, it is a little bit large in between there. That's, I don't know, approximately, from looking, 6 by 8 inches. So I much rather prefer the 4x4 spacing, although that panel is, you know, double the price of this and just a little bit larger. Hope you've enjoyed seeing those stock panels, also called utility panels, here at Freedman Brothers. They may be available near you, and by far those are my favorite ways to trellis plants up in the garden. You're going to invest a little bit of money in them as a one-time investment, but they're going to basically be around for years and years and years, and I want to encourage you to buy things that are going to last a long time instead of trying to live in our disposable society where so many things are disposable. So buy something once and keep it for a long time. That being said, because these panels are quite large, you can bring some bolt cutters with you and shave them down if you know the sizes you'll need in your garden. So when you transport them back to your house, they'll actually be smaller to fit in your car or vehicle. Next, we're gonna go over to another area where they're selling a few more things that a home gardener could use. So in this area, they have a welded wire fencing, and this stuff definitely can get expensive, much less expensive than the stock panels. If you are using this for trellising, depending on what you're putting on there, you may want to frame it out in some wood or not. I definitely would encourage you to get the ones with the largest hole size possible. Much of the hole sizes on these guys are maybe 2 inches by 4 inches, something like that. And you know, that's kind of small for tomatoes and things like that, unless they're cherries. You can't really reach your hand through the little holes in there to pull out like a nice large tomato. So these may not be optimal. I'd much rather you get the utility panels that we just looked at. So in this area, they got some poultry netting, also known as chicken wire on rolls. These are some small rolls here. And you know what, if you're into gardening, I would pretty much say save the poultry netting unless you want to keep poultry out of your garden. You know, you don't want to be using that for any garden type uses. The gauge of the wire is just too thin and it's not going to be too effective. In this section, there's some aviary netting, so I guess that's even smaller holes, thinner wire, not too good for gardening either. So next, we're getting into the hardware cloth here, and hardware cloth can be useful for use in your garden. One of the biggest uses is when you're building your raised beds, to line the bottom of your raised beds with the hardware cloth. And this is a nice hardware cloth right here, this size. This is a 19 gauge wire, 1/2 inch spacing on the holes, and this would do an excellent job to line the bottom of your raised beds to keep creatures out, such as the gophers, the moles, and the voles. And what you want to remember when buying the hardware cloth is, number one, you want to make sure it's a galvanized hardware cloth. Number two, you want to check the gauge on it, and you want to buy the lowest gauge number they have available at your store. The lower the gauge number, the thicker the wire is going to be, so the more resistant to damage and you know, it will be. So this happens to be 19 gauge. I think I saw a 28 gauge over there, but if they had 18 gauge, that'd even be better. But you also want to check the price. As the gauge goes down, the wire gets thicker, it also gets more expensive. Another thing you may want to use that's actually very useful for trellis material is this stuff right here. This stuff is actually called a remesh, and as you can see, this stuff actually rusts. So it's actually not galvanized and meant for lighter duty, and it's definitely going to last you a while, but definitely much less expensive. And so that's about a 7 by 4 foot sheet, and that's about $8. If they have the remesh available also in rolls, and as you can see, you got the nice rusted look. That means that they rust, and these holes are about 6 inches by 6 inches. Once again, you know, I'd encourage you to buy something that's going to last a while and get the galvanized stock panels that we just looked at, rather than the remesh. Although if you don't have a lot of money, then you know these remesh mats are definitely going to work and probably do a pretty good job as well. Next, let's talk about stock tanks. So stock tanks, these are galvanized tanks used for like feeding horses and whatnot. These guys are excellent for use for a raised bed. So this guy is about 1 foot tall, 2 feet wide, and 4 feet long. And these guys are galvanized for a long life and definitely heavy duty. So this is all you need basically to just fill this up, and you have an instant 4 foot by 2 foot raised bed. That one's 80 bucks actually. Even a better deal in my opinion would be this guy right here. It's $109. It's a 6 foot long, 1 foot tall, and 2 feet wide. So fill that up with some dirt and have an instant raised bed. And you do want to remember to pop some holes in the bottom for drainage. They do have larger size stock tanks that just get a lot deeper, but you know, those aren't really needed, and they get actually quite expensive. They even have round ones over there as well. The last thing I'm going to show you guys today, what might be useful here, are these tanks and these water tanks. So these can be very useful for storing your rainwater until you're going to use it. So you want to store a lot of rainwater, maybe in the winter time if you live here, because it rains mostly in the winter and not in the summer. Other parts of the country may, you know, rain more evenly throughout the year. But here we need to store a lot of water to have it for the dry summer. And so you could get a large tank to store your water. Now, before you buy a new tank, I'd encourage you to check out, basically 55-gallon drums or barrels that are being reused, or these other things called totes. I did have another episode on the totes. They hold about 300 gallons or so, and are usually about $150. So much better deal than this if you're just storing rainwater. These ones are meant for maybe storing even potable water, although I wouldn't want to drink my potable water out of plastic. Anyways, let's take a look at some of these guys. This one's a 425 gallon, and that's a $319. But if you go up to a 550 gallon, it's just $10 more. But that's the black plastic. And then they get a super huge and super crazy, as you can see over yonder. I mean, you could store lots of water. In addition, they have these small little rain barrels just to collect the rainwater. And the smaller ones are definitely good if you get more consistent rain throughout the year. You got the money and you don't want to buy one of those black tanks we just saw to store lots of water next to your house, and you live in a residential area, you can get one of these tanks. These are just basically slimline tanks. I don't know, maybe like 2 feet wide, but they're nice and tall and will hold lots of water. And these are specifically designed pretty much for storing water and rainwater. But these guys can cost a pretty penny. And these ones happen to be the Bushman tanks. So here's that rain barrel we just saw in the back, actually, and we're in the store now. It's actually on clearance for $39. So for $39, it's definitely a good deal, so that you can store your rainwater. And I want to encourage all my viewers to at least store part of your rainwater. I catch some of my rainwater every single year, so that I can distribute that back to my plants where it should end up, back in nature, to provide water for my garden and give my plants the best source of water possible from nature. Because when you are using municipal water, you're probably putting the chlorine and other things that may be in your water supply. With the rainwater, you don't have that problem. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, learning more about what's available at the Friedman Brothers yard and what may be available at a hardware or farm store near you. Once again, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and keep on growing.